Hello, everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast is part of a Meteor edition. This audio podcast is part of a Biome bullet, and this audio podcast Synopsis as part of a Lobostics Phantom, and this audio podcast as part of a Storm Lobostics production. In this audio podcast and this synopsis. This synopsis will we're going to sort of an overview in regard to research post and presented works within the remits in regard to the remits the International Pediatric Nephrology Association, the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine, and the 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 remit in regard to a research ethics a research ethics symposium and a remit in regards to a in regards to a data science symposia and a data science symposia, and so uh, the the poster presentation of works presented within the International Pediatric Nephrology Association. What one of the poster presentations One of the poster presentations been in it was within the remit in regard to within the remit and in regard to looking at sort of collaborative works linking sort of long term or long-standing conditions, but also aligned to and sort of aligned to looking at works around those suffering with varying disabilities, and sort of questioning this collaborative works in surrounding cancer, social media, reduce sort of discrimination and ignorance towards patients with long-standing or long-term conditions, and looking at works sort of collaboratively linked to those with linked to literature around disabilities, around varying disabilities, and where this works looks at some underpinning data that had been presented under the remit, again in around the International Pediatric Nephrology Association in 2016, and the data have been with the data was some initial data that came that was derived with a collaborative effort aligned to under a collaboration with under the Renal Patient Support Group, the RPSG, and then this particular works looks at this particular works again also looks at, apart from looking at discrimination and ignorance in context of those suffering with disabilities, those suffering with disabilities and long-standing or long-term conditions, but also looks at sort of the perspective the use of social media, but also in line to assistive technologies, and particular and specific for those who suffer with long with particular and specific disabilities. And then a second a second poster presentation presented at the International Pediatric Nephrology Association. A second poster presentation poster presentation at the international, within the remit of International Pediatric Nephrology Association in IPNA 2016, looks at sort of issues aligned to and surrounding surrounding chronic kidney disease, the varying terminologies aligned to sort of terminology in aligned to terminology and the varying stages of disease or condition, and the varying severity around to the varying severity linked to the varying the varying forms of chronic kidney disease CKD stages. And when this poster presentation, this collaborative works presented the International Pediatric Nephrology Association in 2016, looks at sort of the sort of varying the varying classification aspects, the sort of issues or contentions, if you like, some of the issues and contentions, and also look at sort of what sort of aspects what aspects of terminology, but also a link to specific areas or aspects of laboratory practices in context of clinical chemistry or biochemistry, could make it potentially could make sort of certain areas of frontline practices, particularly or potentially sort of more supportive, if you like, for those who are sort of the frontline clinical practitioners, to ensure that those who suffer or go through varying forms of CKD have more sort of clarity in regard to the varying forms of CKD stages, and where this works also puts forward the suggestion for an additional sort of CKD sort of classification aligned to an additional sort of severity, and thus also potentially removing one of the sort of one of the stages, where one of the stages is linked to two parts, and where the two parts of that particular stage of CKD are sort of currently and also sort of retrospectively can potentially cause some confusions to and those amongst sort of those in the adult sort of nephrology population, but also where in the sort of pediatric population there can be some issues as these patients, or those patients who are from a sort of a pediatric and young population, as they transition into adult healthcare services, where CKD stages 3A and 3B and 3A and 3B more often than not do not sort of do not sort of apply or are or are applicable. This particular this particular post presentation looks at some of the sort of some of the contentions in around the issues, again in around the issues around CKD terminology. And then there's a poster presentation within sort of public health, if you like, in public health, but looks at works around CKD, chronic kidney disease, and some poll based data looking at sort of the healthcare educational context for those going through varying forms of CKD, and looks at sort of data, some poll based data wherein where the investigators put forward where the investigators where the investigating team had put forward some preliminary or some pilot data, if you like, in regard to five different polls linked to five different questions that have been put forward onto a social media platform, sort of retrospectively, and where this poster presentation was put forward as works presented at the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine, or BSLM, in 2019, and then works presented works presented at a data science symposium, a symposium that had taken place, and where investigators put forward a poster presentation looking at some data around around some data, and present an example in around sort of tech, some aspects of tech, looking at how polypharmacy polypharmacy could be reduced, but also where aspects of the tech sort of retrospectively look at how the how polypharmacy could be reduced, and thus also where the influence of nephrotoxicity and renal impairment can also be and subsequently could be reduced, and so this works this particular poster presentation presented at a data science data science symposium in 2019, looks at some preliminary data in around some aspects of tech, in around some aspects of tech, and also where this tech at the time had been utilized in amongst a sort of within the environment of nursing homes and care homes, and so then we have there's a poster presentation that looks at that looks at looks at works in regard to using social media, and mainstream media, uh, aspects of using social media, mainstream media to highlight and sort of the sort of ethics or ethical aspects and sort of educational aspects in around the sort of science and sort of laboratory sort of medicine and sort of pathology basis in regard to in regard to in regard to aspects around transplantation, and where works delves into the literature and looks at sort of looks at works in regard to also in regard to sort of ethics, faith, and science, and also looking at aspects of where works put forward, where the research poster looks at varying questions, and throughout the poster presentation there is a a link to how the questions are sought to be answered. And again, where this works was presented at a research ethics symposia or conference in 2019. And then finally, in this audio podcast, in this audio podcast, works is presented works presented is within the remit of the International Pediatric Nephrology Association at the IPNA 2022 conference, and where this works looks at sort of a particular and important condition that is linked to pediatrics and young people, and into adolescence, and looks at the condition, a condition known as, or referred to as, Henoch-Schönlein purpura, or HSP, and looks at this from this particular condition from a biomedical and clinical anatomy sort of practice. And when there's collaborative works looks to highlight sort of the sort of aspects of epidemiology, aspects linked to sort of biomarkers, and then delve into sort of the multidisciplinary laboratory practice sort of perspective, and where the authors highlight sort of the highlight some of the sort of the main sort of findings, and sort of aspects of or criteria for patients, sort of patients within patients within pediatrics or young people, where there's sort of a criteria for hospitalization, and then also the sort of laboratory practices in regard to how different sort of specialisms within laboratory practice are involved in aspects of patient care, from this from this from this from this sorry for this particular disease, this condition known as, again, Henoch-Schönlein purpura, or HSP. So that draws this audio podcast Synopsis to a close. This audio podcast surrounding Meteor Edition. This audio podcast, Synopsis, as part of a Biome bullet. This audio podcast as part of a Lobostics Phantom, and this audio podcast Synopsis as part of a Storm Lobostics production.